Howdy folks, and in this episode of the Smoogleville Workshop I'll be showing you how I built this rather magnificent Adirondack chair. Sit, Daisy. So the history of this Adirondack chair goes back to 2013 when I first built these guys, and these were based on a design I had. I borrowed the chair off a friend and copied the dimensions and made these two out of cedar. It was about 7/8 of an inch thick boards, and they feature a flat back, and they're reasonably comfortable. They're not bad, and they've stood up quite well. They've been recently repainted so that they will resist the weather. They were getting a little shabby looking. You may have seen them in some of the earlier videos. So those were the Mark 1s, and this here is the Mark 2, this one with a heart cut in the back. And this featured some adjustments to the dimensions for somebody of a slightly smaller stature, and I put more of a flare on the back boards there so it fans out more widely, and you can see a little custom feature there. So that was the Mark 2. So fast forward to 2020, and here is the Mark III, my latest prototype, and I took a lot of time to make adjustments to this. And let's talk about some of the features, some of the improvements that I've made over the earlier designs. And for a start, I've got a much more curved back. And I've used 7 boards to achieve a more curved back. You need narrower boards to actually do that. So there's the angle that you're seeing there. I also adjusted the angle on the main struts to give a more curved seat. And this feature was completely absent on the Mark II, these rear struts that give the whole chair a lot more rigidity and a lot more strength, and it does make construction easier. We've got plenty to anchor the arms to, and we can also fit the upper curved rear support at an angle, so we don't have to cut the angle into the wood. We can just cut that at a 90 degree and then place that on an angled cut at the top of those struts. So overall, it was a much improved design, and it is a much more comfortable chair. So the first step in this process was to develop all of the templates, and I created a variety of versions using different spare materials in the workshop. But I did find that 1/4 inch MDF is an excellent templating material. So basically the process looks like this. You start to create templates and parts, and then adjust them and keep adjusting them and trying different ideas until it works. This was my first attempt at a curved back, taking the old design and simply curving the bar at the back, but it was too shallow. And here you can see I was also experimenting with the idea of using a through tenon with a peg. I've also started to experiment with the idea of using 5/4 pine for the main struts, the front support strut there, and ultimately I made the legs also using the more robust and heavy material. I also decided to give the chairs a thicker, more chunky look by using 5/4 pine on the arms as well. You can see the blanks. I haven't actually fitted those to the prototype that you're seeing yet. They're still in the workshop, but I will get to that at some point. But on the final chairs I made, I used the thicker 5/4 pine. And after running a 3/8 round over bit around the edges, they look really nice, even though I do say so myself. So anyway, getting back to the development of this thing, you can see there, I'm going through some various iterations. That one's leaning back too far. I really haven't got the angle right. I tried using a wider board in the middle to start with, but that was starting to cause problems, and I was having to cut that with tapers on it, which was adding a lot of time to the production and meant I also had to taper the other boards as well, which was difficult to do on the table saw, and again was adding a lot of time to the process. So ultimately I abandoned this entire approach. So anyway, I did a bit more research and started to experiment with the idea of using some rear supports, something new for my particular line of Adirondack chairs, and I found this to have a lot of benefits. It was a lot more robust, a lot more stable, actually easier to build and construct, and it also means that I didn't have to cut an angle into that curved piece at the back. I could actually angle the top of the support bars and then have just a 90-degree curve cut and let the boards come to rest on that part. So over the period of about 2 weeks, I kept making alterations and changes. I probably really created about 3 versions of the chair before I settled on this particular template set. And you can see I even ran out of 1/4-inch MDF there and used all kinds of scraps to make up the different template parts. But basically, there it is, the final design for what will hopefully be a very comfortable Adirondack chair. Now, I basically ended up making 4 of the final models of these chairs, and the one you're seeing me build here was actually made in knotty pine, and I actually created a lot of the material for this myself because you can't basically buy 5/4 knotty pine, so I was actually buying 2x6s and then running them through the thicknesser in order to create these really nice, chunky, meaty looking parts, which should give a really strong, firm chair. So you can see I'm putting those together for a buddy of mine, Bob, who's going to be joining me. You'll see him in some of the later videos, helping me actually put this and the other Adirondack chairs together. Now, the final chairs that you're going to see me building are actually built in Spanish cedar, which was a really nice material to work with. Not cheap, but certainly beautiful material. Smelled really nice when you were working it. Cuts like butter. It behaved itself in every tool. The router, the bandsaw, the crosscut saw, the table saw. It just really is a dream to work with. And the beauty of the chair that it created was really quite beyond my expectation. I created these templates for all the main parts, which I'm placing on this board now and cutting these out. And so there's the template set, and I used MDF to make the templates and some thin ply as well in a couple of cases, but that's all the parts right there, all described in template. So I'm going to just basically manufacture this and assemble it, and we'll have 2 cedar, Spanish cedar. That'll give you a sense of the chair there, what the final product will look like. Nice chunky dimensions, and I think that's going to make some really long-lasting and handsome garden furniture. So, having prepared all the timber, it was a case of using the template parts now to transfer the shapes onto the wood and then cut out all the parts. The next process that we're going to go through is I'm going to sand these, and there's a lot of sanding to do, particularly on these curved parts, and we have to sand before I do the router table. I'm going to do a 3/8 round on many of these parts, but you need a really smooth curve in order to do that, and we've still got the bandsaw blades and slight deviations in the cutting. So I'm going to spend the next half an hour or so sanding all of these parts. I'm going to do it in one batch. Here I'm going to use this sander with dust mitigation and a dust mask, because this is going to basically turn this workshop into a dust fest. So it's going to require, you know, good breathing apparatus, because it's going to generate some very fine dust. So if ever you're going to do any sanding, you should always wear a dust mask. Okay, here goes. Okay, so as far as the parts for the chair are concerned, I think that's all the machining done now, which is nice. It's going to be just using screwdrivers now, electric screwdrivers, to start putting this together. And there it is. After 3 prototype iterations, 2 versions built in 5/4 pine, and the final 2 versions made with 5/4 Spanish cedar, a full set of templates exist, and the quest for a more perfect Adirondack chair is over. Let's see what their new owners thought. Well, you can't argue with that, can you? Prost! Please click the like button if you found this episode helpful, and we'd love to have you as a subscriber, as there's always something interesting going on in the Smoogleville workshop. For some reason my dust extraction is not extracting. Well, that would be why. I think it might be full already.